Imagine this. Your home is being destroyed day by day. Climate change is one of the leading causes of habitat destruction. In fact, habitat destruction is a main threat to about 85% of endangered species. The warmth of the sun makes life on Earth possible. The majority of the solar radiation entering our atmosphere bounces back into space, however, a small portion is trapped. This makes up our atmosphere. This acts as a layer of insulation. Carbon dioxide, CO2, is the most important gas in the layer of insulation. Carbon is stored all over the planet, in plants, soil, the ocean, and even us. There has been so much carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases released that Earth's atmosphere is now like a thick, heat-trapping blanket. We are now seeing extreme effects around the globe due to disrupting the atmospheric balance that keeps the climate stable, which results in global warming. Global warming has begun. Since the 1900s, the global average temperature has risen by 0.7 degrees Celsius, and the northern hemisphere is substantially warmer than at any point during the past 1,000 years. More specifically, what are the effects of climate change and global warming on our oceans? What are some social impacts? One very alarming social impact is water contamination. The rising sea levels will cause acidity to seep underground and cause contamination with salt and other chemicals. However, many coastal areas rely on fresh water sources called aquifers from the ground to provide drinking water. Salt water is unsafe to drink, and while it is possible to remove the salt from water, doing so is an expensive and complicated process. Another social impact is farming interference. Freshwater sources used for drinking are also used for irrigation. The rising sea levels are prone to make groundwater sources saltier, and saltwater stunts or kills crops. And again, creating fresh water from salt water is a costly and unsustainable practice. Change in coastal plant life. More salt water hitting our shores will change the chemistry of the soil on the coast. This will result in a change of plant life. Plants are really sensitive to their environment. Air temperature, access to water, and the chemical characteristics of soil are all factors that influence whether a plant can thrive in a given location. As rising ocean water seeps into the ground, the soil near the coast will become saltier. Some plants will simply be unable to cope with the change in soil salinity and may disappear from the shoreline. This will affect us because it lowers the availability of fresh foods, resulting in the need for more money to produce foods. Trees have to work harder to pull water out of salty soil. As a result, their growth can be stunted. If the soil is salty enough, they will die. Even trees that are especially suited to salty soil can't survive repeatedly flooding by seawater. Economic issues. The rising sea levels will also have a huge economic issue. As previously mentioned, the process of filtering salt is expensive and complicated, which will affect the economy. However, that's not all. The changes in coastal areas around the world will eliminate many tourist attractions such as beaches that will be washed away by water. This will lower the amount of tourists in those areas, resulting in an economic downfall. What are some environmental impacts? Invasive species. As the water gets warmer and more acidic, many species have a hard time adapting. A recent study conducted by the Ecological Society of America introduced species to different types of water temperatures in a synthetic ecosystem. It shows that the species they introduced to the warmer environment were more likely to thrive because they had a higher survival rate and greater increase in year growth in comparison to the native species that were already living there. Marine diseases. Higher water temperatures lead to the growth and transmission of various diseases and parasites. This can destroy a species' immune system because they may not be able to adapt. For example, Zygotera, a common biotoxin-related illness, is transmitted by marine dinoflagellates who produce zygotoxins, which are then consumed by herbivorous fish. As a result of the higher ocean temperature, not only do the amount of dinoflagellates increase, but it also increases the fish's appetite, causing the fish to overeat dangerous amount of bacteria. forced migrations. Oceans absorb 1/3 of human-produced carbon dioxide, about 22 million tons a day. This has resulted in an increase of 25% of ocean acidity in the past 2 years. This leads to reproductive disorders in fish. For example, ocean acidification is bad for corals because it prevents them from absorbing the calcium carbonate they need to maintain their exoskeleton. Coral reefs are full of life. They may include sea turtles, fish, mollusks, and sponges. Ocean acidification negatively affects their biological makeup, and when they die, a large diversity of species is forced to migrate to different habitats where they may become an invasive species. What are these solutions? Seawater reverse osmosis. This process is also known as desalination. Wells extract water from shorelines or an intake structure that is placed in the ocean. The water then passes through a multimedia filter that uses sand and gravel to filter out pebbles, twigs, and plants. Moving along, the water passes through a cartridge filter that filters out even smaller particles such as sand and clay. Next, pressure is applied to salt water in order to get it to pass through the semi-permeable reverse osmosis membrane to get the fresh water side. This process can be used to desalinate water and make it available for use if fresh water sources will become harder to find. Another solution would be limestones. To neutralize increased ocean acidity, a good idea would be to add a base such as limestone. Although around 4 billion tons would be needed every year to be dumped into the oceans, it would maintain an equilibrium between the many different types of carbon. This balance would allow oceans to absorb large amounts of carbon dioxide without a drastic change in the water markup. The far-reaching effects of global warming are being felt all across the earth. Humans, animals, and plants are already experiencing the greenhouse effect because of the rising temperatures and changes in ocean habitats. All human beings and other living organisms coexist on this earth and are interconnected with each other. This vivid coexistence of living organisms on this planet can also be referred to an ecosystem. It is our responsibility that we make sure that we are able to keep this ecosystem running because it provides us with many means of survival. It is also our responsibility to make sure that future generations are able to experience the world in an equally pleasant way that we are able to experience it right now.